Sir William Seal.
Mr. Speaker, I haven't had a chance to look through the bill, given the amount of time that member spent on his speech. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to take a call on this and note that the bill has two parts. Part one is amendment of the Telecommunications Act 2001, and then part two is simply the introduction of new schedules. And which begs the question, sir, as to, it seems like this was something very, very easy that could have been done quite some time ago, and we're only now coming around to it. But then I'm asking myself, if it's only two parts to this, what else is missing from this bill? Because you have to consider the timing of this when the country is awash in a national housing crisis. We're trying to deal with this issue here. And I'll tell you why I raise that at a later stage.
While sticking to the bill, you'll do.
Yes. So in terms of the bill, my colleague David Shearer has said, look, that this is really timely. It's something that needs to happen. And therefore we don't have a problem with it. That goes to select committee. But I think I would be keen, like many that I've heard in this House, to listen to the submitters, because whilst the papers that's been made available talks about Category 1, methods that have no lasting impacts on property, such as those that only disturb grass or other soft surfaces, for these installations, a statutory right will be provided for a network operator to get on with the install after providing 5 working days notice. This is estimated to cover about 1/3 of installation in shared driveways. The second category of the installation that this information provides is that methods that have some lasting impact on property, and I suspect drilling a cable underground, leaving small potholes to access the network every 10 metres or so. For these installations, neighbours will be provided with a high-level design and given 15 working days to object on a limited number of grounds. I'm not sure what those limited number of grounds are, sir, but it appears that 15 working days, you have that opportunity to do so. If they do not object, they will be deemed to have consented. Category 2 is estimated to cover off approximately half of installations in shared driveway rights of ways. Then at the last part of this information, we have unprescribed installations, and remaining 20% or so of installation methods that are more invasive than these new categories will continue to be subject to the existing requirement whereby all parties need to provide their consent. This is information provided by the Ministry of Business, Information and Employment. Now, I was looking through the Act to see whether there's information available in terms of people living in cars or garages, whether they will have access to this. And I'll tell you why, sir, because the internet access to the home, this is a report released last year, 2014, I'm sorry, which says that household access to the internet, it states that in terms of, while 86% of the European population had access to the internet at home in 2012, only 68% of Māori people and 65% of Pacific people had internet access in the home. And then it goes further that in 2001, the gap between European and Māori was 8 percentage points, and this had increased to 18 percentage points by 2012, an increase of 125%. Similarly, the gap between Europeans and Pacific people was 12 percentage points in 2001, and this had increased to 21 percentage points by 2012, an increase of 75%. So the point, sir, is you've got a significant proportion of New Zealand population that have no access to the internet in the first place, which I thought would be also something that the government ought to look at. And then in my own electorate, internet access is 57.9% compared with the rest of New Zealand of 72.8%. So a significant proportion of our, not only my electorate, but a significant portion of New Zealanders will not be able to benefit from this. And I can't find anything in the bill that suggests the rollout of internet access to the rest of New Zealand population. And so, given the situation that we currently have, will people living in cars, garages, emergency home, will they have the benefit of this? And the point of this whole report, sir, is to suggest that one of the signs of poverty, one of the signs of growing inequality, is the lack of access to the internet and the lack of access, I suspect, for many to broadband. I think my colleague David Parker highlighted a newspaper article this morning, sir, in the Herald, in how this occurred, where it showed some holes that have been dug, not just one, but a number of neighbours, with duct tape being used to attach. I hope that as part of this bill, part of the public consultation process, that the members of the general public who have had some experience so far in being able to access the internet or services that they have received will come forward, because my fear and the concern that I have is the power that is given to the network operators to simply come through and determine with, see, I don't know whether they'll give that notice to the neighbours by way of a letter or by a card, because I suspect that there will be a lot of people in various neighbourhoods that don't even pick up the mail in their letterbox anymore. They've become dependent on the email. So I don't know, I'd be interested in hearing from the general public, how would they prefer receiving that notice, whether it be a letter or a card or through their internet service. So I don't really have any further to add to this bill. The approach that the explanatory note says the bill will allow prospective liable persons to select their chosen financial year end date rather than mandating the year ending 30 June format. The bill will update terminology by replacing the term consolidated statement of financial. Seems to be a lot of waffle, sir, when we're only trying to do something very, very simple, and that is enable people to access fibre, but I'm saying, sir, that what's lacking from this bill is what this government intends to ensure that access to internet communication is available for all New Zealanders. For as long as the figures that I've quoted earlier remain where a significant proportion of New Zealanders, significant proportion of my electorate do not have access to internet, then, sir, the finger pointing that is happening and will continue to happen towards this government will continue because lack of access to internet is a sign of poverty, particularly in this day and age, 21st century. If families don't have access to that, then they would be classified as poor, but that's only one of the signs. Thank you very much.
Kia ora. Brett Hudson.